T-minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5. All three engines up and burning. 2, 1, 0, and liftoff.
Coach on Fire Radio.
I am the tiger, dancing through the fire. I am the champion, and you're gonna hear me roar.
Good morning, good afternoon, and a good evening, wherever you are in this beautiful world. And a very warm welcome to my radio show, Let's Talk Relationships and Life. And it really is wonderful to have you with us today. And I'm so excited to introduce my guest in a moment. But first, I just wanted to take a minute to talk to you about what you can expect to learn and how you're going to feel really inspired by the shows which are aired every other Saturday. And my name is Louise Armstrong. And I have a huge passion and drive in life to share my knowledge and expertise all about relationships. This stems from my own personal transformation, and I'm hugely motivated to actually take my business to a brand new level. And this happened last week. I have a face-to-face business here in Dubai, which has been a huge success, actually. I'm very, very excited about that. But I'm going to pick up the whole thing and put it online. So that's happening at this moment. So I am really all about relationships, because I believe all of us crave to be emotionally loved, and that could be on a romantic level, personal, or through friendships. And if we really can't make that connection, it's because we're emotionally wounded ourselves. And that self-love is really the first step in healing before we can even look at making those connections. And right now, you could be struggling with a relationship. Perhaps you're going through a breakup. Maybe you're recently divorced. Or perhaps your partner's had an affair, or you're struggling with your mother or your father or your kids. Or maybe your work colleagues let you down. Or perhaps you just want to take that relationship to a deeper level. Well, we're going to really help you heal those wounds, learn to love yourself, and to make those emotional connections that you really do crave. And now I feel it's the right time for me to introduce coaches, therapists, motivators, public speakers to share with you their expertise and knowledge. And you're going to learn valuable tips and advice and strategies. Because life is all about relationships. The better the connection, the better the quality of life. Right, enough about me. And I'm very excited to introduce Lorraine Regularly. Good evening, Lorraine, because I know it's late at night where you are.
Yes, good morning to you, Louise. How are you today?
I'm very well. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me on your podcast.
Well, it's a huge honour and a real pleasure. And Lorraine and I, we actually both help. We do similar things in very different ways, don't we? Because we help people to learn how to discover ways of leading a happier life. And today, Lorraine is going to reveal her secret strategy to happiness, which has really helped her to build the business and the life of her dreams. Wow, I'm very excited to dive in there. But before we dive in there, I'm just going to tell you a little bit about Lorraine. Lorraine has a BA and a BEd, and she's an author and an English teacher turned freelancer for hire. I like that. Teacher turned freelancer. Her life journey is motivational and hugely inspirational. Lorraine went from being a suicidal mess to a huge success. She endured rape, drug and gambling addictions, single motherhood, and was once a high school dropout. But she became a teacher, an author, and built a business around her passion, which is words. Lorraine offers 4 different services on wording well, including writing, blogging, editing, consulting, coaching, and mentoring. And she also helps others become published authors. Lorraine, I'm going to need you next year. I'm going to need you. Lorraine's book, From Nope to Hope, is a self-help book designed to help anyone who wishes to lead a happier life. and it contains a built-in workbook so that readers can see results almost immediately. Lorraine has many secrets to her success, and the main one being the power of positive affirmations. You must be a fan of Louise Hay, Lorraine.
I am.
Yeah, she's an incredible woman, isn't she? Incredible. Right, Lorraine, before we dive straight in, I really want to learn, and I'm sure the listeners do, just a little bit about your background as to how there's a huge amount that's come out in that bio, what you've been through. So can you just give us kind of a little oversight before we dive into the actual content here as to how you got into doing what you're doing?
Sure. I guess it kind of all started for me back when I was a teenager and I was raped. I was a virgin at the time. I was 14 years old, and it completely devastated me. And that traumatic event changed the course of my life, as you could imagine. So I didn't have anybody to talk to about what happened to me, and I tried coping all on my own. I did that by turning to drugs, drinking, food, and basically failed at accepting and dealing with the whole incident. I ended up quitting school and becoming promiscuous, looking for love in all the wrong places, and I ultimately ended up involved with prostitution. When I realized that my life was kind of on a downward spiral, and after my son was born, I decided to go back to school and try and get some kind of an education so that I could give my son a better life. So I finished my high schooling, I went to university, I got a couple of degrees, I became a high school math and English teacher, and moved away and taught high school math and English for 3.5 years. But then I faced some other issues, and I ended up quitting and moving back home. I returned to prostitution because of the money and the flexible hours and things like that. And my son found out and disowned me. Moved out, I didn't talk to him for 3 years. So I basically ruined the only relationship that was really important in my life. And we'll talk more about that after. The good news is that we ended up reconnecting because I suffered a burst appendix and nearly died, and had an epiphany that I realized that I didn't want to die, I wanted to live. I wanted to pursue my dreams and accomplish a few things before I actually died. And that was a real epiphany for me because all my life, well, ever since being raped, I had suffered from depression and suicidal thoughts. And so even though those kinds of thoughts still plagued me, I at least had a new reason, a new meaning for living. And so I ended up reconnecting with my son. I explained to him everything that happened, and it led me on a path of goodness. And from that point, a lot of good things started happening for me. I started blogging, I started a website, I ended up starting my own business and turning that, like my passion for words into an actual business. So, I mean, you've heard the saying, if you enjoy what you do, you'll never have to work a day in your life. And that's exactly how I feel now. Over the years, I also went to counseling and learned a lot of different coping strategies to help me along my journey. But it wasn't until I actually started my online journey back in 2013 that I had learned about positive affirmations. For some reason, the counselors that I went to had not mentioned that strategy to me. And I was completely surprised and even skeptical when I first heard about them. But I started using them, and I turned my life into a happier one, and one that's actually worth living. So that's kind of the long and short of what's brought me here today to doing what I'm doing with running my business. And I just wanted to mention that in the self-help area of it, helping others improve relationships, I wrote an article about my suicide attempt. And when I realized that I was getting over 500 people a day reading that article, it dawned on me that, I need to write a book and share even more of what I know about overcoming suicidal thought so that I could help these people even further. And that's exactly what I did. So that is how From Nope to Hope came into existence, and why. So that's, and that's one of the things that I'm doing now as well, is helping other people deal with their depression and suicidal thoughts, and, trying to help motivate them even more. So I do a lot of different things, and that's kind of, what ended up connecting you and I together is because of, the goodness that we do in our lives. So again, it's a pleasure to be here, and thank you again so much for having me.
Wow, well, thank you, Lorraine. That is some journey you have been on. What an incredible woman you are, and I can just feel your passion. I can just really feel it coming out of your voice there. So, gosh, Lorraine, you really have, such an inspiration. Have really, really turned your life completely around 180 degrees.
Yes, I have.
Just go, incredible.
And I use my personal experiences to help others and be a role model for others, because if I can go through, all of what I've gone through and still come out on top, then that proves right there that there is hope for every single person out there who has maybe only even gone through a fraction of what I went through, but the effects, the devastating effects, are still the same. And so, hope is out there, and it's there, and that's what I use to help other people on their journeys.
That is wonderful. And as you say, from, that place you were in, you don't have to have gone through everything you've been through, but you may be experiencing, the suicidal ideation, the depression. You don't have to have been through, the terrible things that you've suffered, but you may well be feeling similar feelings to you. And I think the resonation with your own story is your greatest connection with others, without a doubt. And that's why that article you put out there was, people connected with you, because you're real, you're authentic, you're real. You've actually lived and breathed through this, and you know how it feels. And the most wonderful thing is you've learned skills and strategies how to develop and create a much happier way of living. So, for all you listeners out there is always, always hope in whatever you're suffering. So if we could just go back a little bit, Lorraine, to because there might be, the people could be suffering themselves right now, and I know this is shrouded in shame and secrecy. Why did you feel that you actually couldn't tell anyone about the rape incident at that moment?
Well, when it happened to me, like I said, I was 14. Now I'm 46 currently. So this happened to me back in the mid-1980s. And that was a period of time where society did not talk about things so openly as we do today. Even back then, being gay or, having bisexual thoughts or desires was not discussed. Heck, now gay people are getting married. But back then it was a completely different, it was, now people think it was like back then was like living in the dark ages. And in a way it